Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Shouting into the Void, a weekly series show episode where we discuss Doctor Who in its all new Who glory. Obviously, this is
Especially this week.
especially this week. This is the show where we discuss New Who from 2005 onwards. We've not touched Classic Who yet. If we ever get there, I'm sure that'll be just as fun.
We absolutely need to.
We will, especially and then this will seem tame in comparison.
Maybe like in between RTD era and Moffat, we should have a week
Yeah.
where we do like a classic story. Or
Yeah, that'd be cool. We'll have to discuss that and see what we prefer. Maybe it's the TV movie. Is that Classic
yeah,
Who? Is that New Who? Who knows? It's Who.
No one does.
It's American Who, apparently.
Yes.
But yes, as we have done every week, we go through an episode, and we've made it to series 3. Let me double check. Episode 6. So we're roughly halfway through series 3 now. I'd say it's 13 episodes, isn't it? This series.
Yeah.
So we're at the halfway point. And it's the Lazarus Experiment. Let's say the halfway point of this series is probably where we're gonna flip from okay to pretty good. Today, however, today's episode is very middle of the road, I think is the best way for me to describe it.
That's very kind of you.
Yes. So in this episode, Martha returns from her one trip. One trip,
Martha.
She returns. The Doctor almost unceremoniously drops her home, and then she goes, bye. But luckily for Martha, the TV just happens to be turned on because of a coincidental message from her mum. So thanks to a coincidental series of events, the Doctor and Martha find themselves at a fancy science event where an old man is making himself young again. But things don't go too well for him. He turns into a big CGI monster, starts draining people's life energy, and eventually falls from a bell tower. And then afterwards, obviously, Martha then it's like, can I come with you a bit more? Can I be an official companion? And Doc's like, yeah. And then they go off again. So what did you think of the episode?
You know what? I didn't mind the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I was actually like, when I was watching it, I was like, you know what? I'm pleasantly surprised by this. It's not as terrible as I thought it was. Then he turns into the monster. And I'm like, oh no, abort, go back. I mean, don't get me wrong, the first 15 minutes, I don't think it's like particularly like super exciting and engaging or anything, but I thought, oh, this is fairly well paced and I'm enjoying this. And there's a few moments, but also there's just Martha's family. I'm sorry, I can't stand them. I hate them all, apart from Martha. The whole thing with Lazarus, it just gets so weird and complicated. And there's such a good idea there, I feel, but there's just not the budget or good script to make it work very well. And it just, the pacing then loses itself. It could have been 15 minutes shorter. I think it would have been a better episode for it. It has some moments. I don't think it's unwatchable. I think the episodes I've enjoyed less on this rewatch that we've done, but probably like 2. So I didn't hate it. I didn't particularly love it, but I think it is to its detriment that I'm just like, I'm so uninspired talking about it. I feel like I don't even want to, just because it doesn't really do anything for me at all. Nothing good, nothing bad.
Yeah, that's fair. That's exactly what I'm thinking. It's like, we've had passionate, angry discussions about certain episodes of New Who so far. Love of Monsters, Fear Her, Long Game, but at least we've passionately been annoyed by them or disappointed by them. This one, I kind of feel is just like there's not much that I'm like, I'm so angry, I'm so annoyed at this bit in particular. I'm just like, it's not like, I don't think it's not the worst episode we've ever had. By probably a long while still. I think it's pretty competent in what it does. It's just that what it does isn't that interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think it's aged very well. Obviously, we'll come on to the CGI,
The scorpion in the
especially.
room.
Yeah, yeah. It hasn't aged very well at all. You can tell. I think, ironically, this is the money saver, or it feels like it's the money saver of the series. I'll come on to that as well. But I mean, there are some positives that I have. I did have to scrape the barrel for a couple of them, but then at the same time, I didn't. It's not like I was swimming in negatives either. I wasn't like,
No.
oh yeah, I have 10 negatives. I still had to force 3 out for that one. So
Yeah.
I think it's a shame, because after sort of last week where we had the Dalek 2 party, like, okay, cool. This was a good break. It was a classic villain. Let's see what new stuff we can get. And then you got this. It's like, oh.
It's so frustratingly average. And that's
Yeah.
all I really want to say, but we have to kind of cover it fully. So
Yes. So we will get onto that. And we do start with the positives. We normally have 3 positives, 3 negatives. I'll go first, because
Mhm.
I feel I need to slightly defend Martha's family here, because I thought they were quite enjoyable. It's I get what you mean.
Someone has to, so go for it.
I do get that, they don't really add anything to the episode. They don't need to be there, but I just like seeing. I always like seeing the home life in Doctor Who, whether that was with Rose and her family, Martha and hers, Donna and hers, Clara and her family, when we briefly see them in.
I don't know what it is about the Joneses.
Mm.
I like Rose and her family.
Yeah.
I love Donna and her family, except her mum.
Yeah.
But her mum, I also think the character works as she.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's nothing to these guys, and they don't really get anything until the end of the series anyway. And then most of them we just don't see again.
I think part of me is like knowing where they end up, and knowing the end of the series, and when they reappear in series 4, I'm like, oh, I kind of like them a bit more. I like when they pop up. I think Martha's mum is the standout of her family.
Yeah, I did. Well, we can talk about my negatives and stuff, but I did write Francine's the only one who actually does anything.
Yeah. She is the best one. She does have a bit of character development as well, even though it is character development in the terms of, hey, who's this man? I hate this man. Which is a classic mum trope, apparently. And then
the very next day, you've changed so much.
Yeah. And I mean, she's fine. I think she gets given the most to do by the script. And she is kind of there to sort of reinforce the alienness, ironically, of the Doctor in their life. Reggie Yates as Leo once again shines in his 5 minutes.
Now, Leo is utterly useless. He does not need to be in Doctor Who. But I will say, I think he gets the funniest line of the episode where he's like, technically it's Tish's fault. I thought that was very funny. So I will give him that credit.
That, and when he's like, he like encourages Martha to go off with the Doctor. I'm like, yeah, Leo gets it. Leo's the most.
Exactly.
The only reason he didn't go is because he was injured.
I think that's the thing with me, because I'm like, oh, it's just Jackie doesn't trust the Doctor and doesn't trust him again. We've already literally done that in the family before.
Yeah.
So at least then we have Wilf, who just adores the Doctor and is like, yeah, go with him. And it's just so refreshing, and I love that. Yeah. I just wish they did that with these guys, or at least with the character that we actually see more of, instead of just Leo.
Yeah. I think I just think that they're a sort of a welcome addition, although it's quite, how often do you see your family 2 days in a row if you're not living at home with them? It's very coincidental that this event was happening the exact night after, I assume it's the night after, that Martha has already left. It seems quite very coincidental that it wasn't mentioned before.
And the fact that Tish has been made head of PR and she didn't mention that to Martha at the party the night before this big event. And the fact that she was even going out, I know it's her sister's birthday and everything, irresponsible Tish Jones. I mean, clearly she's very responsible, but
But yes, that I think the only issue I have with the family, ironically, is the timings around it. But I think they're in there to provide the groundedness to Martha that she was almost in fear of losing over the past few episodes, where she was getting swept up in it. Similar to what Rose did when she had the phone call back to mum and she came back and it was 12 months. She had to have that sort of being dragged down to earth to realize and understand how good things are going to be and how good things are being, which I appreciate from that perspective.
But even with the family there, Martha makes exactly the same decision she would have done if they weren't there.
Yeah,
She still just goes over the doctor anyway.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Tish even goes off.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye, Mum.
but I mean, even in the same case, Rose does exactly the same. Donna would do exactly the same, whether the family there or not.
That's
but
because Will's encouraging her,
yeah,
which also helps.
Yeah, but yeah, I do feel they're definitely not the worst of the episode, and I do think they add something to them, and they at least add in a different dynamic to Martha's character that hasn't been there previously in the past few episodes.
That's fair. The only family I care about this series is the family of blood.
Yep,
so we'll get there eventually.
So what is your first positive?
Oh yeah, positives. I'm sorry, I forgot to be positive about this. I put the idea behind what Lazarus was going for. There's a line, I think the doctor kind of explains like why he became this monstery thing, which again is kind of pushing it. But the idea that it was locked away potential evolution, like a potential way we could have evolved that's been locked away. Lazarus unlocked that. I thought that's a really clever idea. And I just wish that was like the main focus instead of Scorpion-y weird monster thing who just talks about the war. That's his personality.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's let down hugely by like budget constraints and everything. I completely understand that. They just couldn't achieve everything they could have done. But if this was like a base Endless Siege thing, they're trapped in that building with that monster, but the monster's constantly changing and evolving. So they find one way to beat it or get away with it. And it just another like chains unlocked or something because DNA is all unstable. That would have been really cool, a really interesting idea, but they just can't afford to do that. So I wanted to give some like credit to that idea in the first place, especially because, fun fact, spoilers, that wasn't the original idea for the episode of what Lazarus was going to be yeah. And there's a very odd reason that I wasn't expecting why they changed the idea that I can't wait to reveal. But yeah, it wasn't executed as well as it could have been just because of budget stuff. It's not really the scriptwriter's fault, even though I don't think he wrote a particularly great episode, and goes on to also write an episode I don't like next series. But the idea itself there with like unlocking a potential evolution for human, I thought that was really clever. So I wanted to give that a shout out.
Yeah, that the concept is actually my third best bit. So I'll come on to that now. Yeah, I did think the idea that he was A, trying to force evolution of humankind, and B, then getting stuck into different types of evolutions of humankind, I felt that was quite good. I like the idea around it, although the science, I'm no scientist. I don't know whether that makes sense. Probably not, but it's a sci-fi show. Defy is fiction, so it's fine. So I like that idea, even if it is quite similar to the two-parter we just had with evolution and all that kind of jazz.
I guess, yeah.
So that I'm like, if this was a little bit, if these two episodes were switched, maybe 42 and the other one, maybe that would have been a little bit better in terms of giving us a break from the things must evolve type situation. Although evolution is quite a theme of this, isn't it? Because if you think of Utopia as well, that's about how the human race and the humankind and future kind and all that have evolved. Even perhaps Gridlock as well, about how humans evolved. So
or devolved in the Macros case.
Yeah. So yeah, I did like the idea. I like the look style of the machine. That looks quite cool.
I really like that design.
Yeah,
and I've got a fun fact about that coming up.
But yeah, I do agree that it is definitely a good idea, and it has potential to go on to be something better. If we ever get a Target novelization of this, maybe they will.
There it is, folks. Ding ding ding.
Well, you
cross
never
that
know.
Off your bingo card.
Again, this won't get a Target novel because it's a bad episode. So this will be like the second to last episode they do, which is fine. But yeah, just totally agree. A good idea, let down by a bit of budget, not necessarily the best script in the first place. And yeah, just a bit naff in the end, unfortunately. But
Sadly.
But hey, positive, good idea.
It is.
So what is your second positive?
The opening scene, the pre-titles sequence. Look, I was struggling.
Nice, yeah. I can see the knife marks at the bottom of the barrel. I can see them.
Yeah. I mean, I think, what actually happens aside, I think it's a nice lead into that with, I mean, obviously it's a very forced timing of the phone and turning on the news and everything. And just so happens to be Tish involved in all that. But when the Doctor then like takes off, comes back like, wait, what did that guy say? I really like that. And the little goodbye scene between them I actually thought was quite nice. And it was a rare moment of this first half of the series where the Doctor actually shows some appreciation for Martha and her role as a companion. So I enjoyed that. And I think it makes a nice contrast to the last scene of the episode, which I will also talk about in the positives. So just seeing like the non-goodbye that happened in this one compared to how the episode ends, I think that's kind of a nice way of tying it all together. Shame about the middle. But yeah, I just thought it was a nice Dr. Martha moment. And I think what stuck out to me, I mean, because it's one of the few scenes I really, really enjoyed, but also I didn't really remember that sequence between them, like, and the laundry and stuff. And for, I think, maybe a TV first, authentic representation of what a flat in London actually looks like, because it's tiny and probably like $2,000 a month or something. So I also kind of appreciated that. So yeah, I thought that was a nice little lead-in scene before the title sequence. It was just a nice moment between the two of them. So there you go.
Yeah, I can agree. Coincidences aside, although I'm pretty sure in the series finale it's explained that Tish has that job specifically because the Master knows that's how, he's basically toying with them at this point, because this is obviously the last time that they're on Earth before the finale, which means that this is when the Master goes back, give or take 6 months or whatever it was. But
brilliant idea to remind us of this episode. Well done. Series 3.
Nice. But hey, I mean, that's something for this, I guess, is that the something in this does come back in the finale, so it does plant some seeds.
Hooray.
But that's about it. My sort of last one is I think Mark Gatiss, however you want to say it.
I think it's Gatiss.
Okay.
I think someone asked him how to pronounce it once on Twitter, and I think his reply was just think gay, I always do, which I found very funny. So fair play to him.
All right. In that case, Mark Gatiss. I just thought his performance outside of CGI Monster. Let's take CGI Monster away from this. Yeah, let's take that out of it. Very good. I literally wrote a note saying, "Oh, he's actually a good actor," because you forget that when you think of this.
Damn.
I was like, "Oh,
he's talented."
Because he can play an old man pretty well in the heavy makeup. He can play an old man stuck in a young body pretty well as well. And even when they're in the bottom of the church, I think it's quite a nice moment between him and the Doctor when they're discussing the mortality of man and how human life is constantly fighting death rather than accepting it or whatever.
It's probably quite exhausting to have to do all those transformation-y stuff. And he had to do that a lot. And how many takes of each one he had to do. That's probably exhausting. So I think he did quite well with that. Yeah,
the only criticism I have is when he really hams up his first transformation. I think that's a bit excessive. But that's it. That's the only thing. I know last week I said that he had quite a hammy performance, but I didn't actually find that was the case. So I would like to retract that statement and say it was actually pretty good. I was just surprised. I don't like his hair in it. I think his hair is terrible. It's always been off-putting for me.
Just his hair in general.
No, his hair, particularly in this one, it's too blonde. Like it's definitely too dyed. Other than that, it's fine.
That's because it's not truly authentic, is it?
Yes, sure, yeah. And I do have to also on that give a shout out to Lazarus as a character. I thought he was quite an interesting character. I would have preferred more, I think, with him as the scientist rather than him as the Scorpion. But yeah, I mean that's sort of it was my second positive. But yeah, I mean I can't really complain. I think he's one of the better actors in the episode of quite a few. Shout out to David Tennant and Free Management as always, I guess, being the leads. But other than what's gonna kill us, an olive or whatever she says.
I love that bit. I love that the instant killer.
yeah. It's like what? Well, other than maybe her, I think Gatiss is the best. Is probably the best extra side character, guest star.
I love Lady Thor's acting when he transforms and she's just there like, oh, all the filters on her.
Yeah, I know. Maybe she should just
Run!
kept that for a bit longer. Yeah, no, she's old. She can't run.
That is one thing. Like everyone just like stayed and watched him transform. Like clearly something's going down.
Yeah,
Fucking
yeah.
leg it.
When they're trying to run up the stairs in the church, they're like, "What's that noise? He's transforming. Oh, we better keep going. Why did you stop?"
And the doctor stops playing the organ to like check. Oh, is anything happening? Like, keep playing.
Yeah. Anyway, positives.
Oh, yeah,
Jesus
sorry.
is good. What is your final positive?
The final scene. Not just
Yay!
because it's the final scene,
Yeah.
but Martha like properly being inducted as a full-time companion. Love that. I think it's a very satisfying moment after just one more trip for the entire series so far.
Took a detour.
Yeah. Oh dear, extended detour. And yeah, I guess the fact that if this whole thing hadn't happened, he would have just fucked off and left her. So you know, but I do think Martha herself was actually very good in this episode as well. I liked the initiative she kind of took and helping out and stuff. So I could see why he's like realizing, oh yeah, I suppose I can put up with you for another half series.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was just a satisfying moment as a Martha fan. Like, oh, thank God, finally. And it just feels like the end to like a mini arc within the series, I guess, of Martha earning that companion status. So that was great. And then when they take off and we hear Francine's voice message and stuff, that's a nice kind of setup for the very next episode as well. But just the whole intrigue of Mr. Saxon that will continue on, especially because we didn't have any Mr. Saxon references or anything since Smith and Jones, because obviously they've been a bit busy in other time periods, so they can't have Mr. Saxon posters in the background of Shakespearean London or whatever. So it's nice to bring that back into it at the halfway point and set up the rest of it. So yeah, it was a nice little final scene as well, as a Martha stan, shall I say.
Yeah, and just thinking about that, as you mentioned, yeah, he would have just went and left there, and I think that just that scene sort of sets up the fact that you can have these standalone adventures with the Doctor in the books, in audio form, where he does just have a one-time companion maybe, and that then also helps when it makes it more believable when the Christmas companions don't go with him, or in the specials when he doesn't take anyone with him. It lays the sort of foundation that, hey, yeah, he can take you on an adventure, but you don't necessarily always stick around. And I think that Martha's sort of putting her foot down and saying, hey, I want to come on properly, not just you're getting a reward type thing. I want to be properly accepted and involved. We'll have to see how that plays out moving forwards. If he does start treating her differently than how he did, I think kind of, yeah, especially in like family.
Until Utopia and all that, I think.
Yeah, because in obviously Family of Blood, she's given her a lot of responsibility. Blink is kind of just, they're not really in it, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not sure about next week. Obviously, she goes off and does her own thing in that, but it's been a long time since I've seen it, so we'll have to see how it goes. Did you have any other positive messages before we scoot into the negatives?
I did enjoy the sounds that Lazarus makes when he transforms, like the squelches.
Oh yeah,
I thought they were very well realized sounds, not the sing when the tail opened. That's like, oh come on, what is this, an anime? But everything else I thought was actually quite I was like, oh god, that's a bit gross. So there was that, and I also found the coming up trailer absolutely hilarious, so we can talk about that after we discuss the episode.
Did you have a coming up one? I just had a next time.
Oh no, the one that probably aired was coming up. And there's a fun fact about why.
Interesting. Okay, mine on my DVD was just a next time.
Oh no, this was coming up. It had the rest of the series on it. On iPlayer.
Oh, interesting. There you go. There's some interesting trivia for you all. If you want to watch the coming up trailer, BBC iPlayer. Yeah,
you got 2 months, so get on it.
I also want to give a shout out to the music as well in this episode. There was some moments where it was pretty good, especially during the quieter moments with the Martha and the Doctor. I thought that was pretty good. Again, Murray Gold, always has good music in him, and it always comes through, in especially in these episodes.
I did notice the music at the end when the TARDIS takes off, just before the phone call starts. Is the music when Rose comes back and Partners in Crime. So it's like, oh, see what we did there.
Yes, that does now mean that we're on to the negatives. I have a feeling maybe we might have the first ones the same, but I'll start. The terrible CGI scorpion. uh, it's not like, and we discussed this last week. I don't think it's necessarily the design of it.
I think the
bad.
design's great. I genuinely really like the design, except for I think it was a mistake to have a face on it.
Yeah. I think the human face, that's not. I don't think it's even Mark Gatiss' face. It doesn't look like it. If it's supposed to be,
then it doesn't.
But I think that was a bad move because then that also makes it look more fake.
Yeah.
And it's just CGI in general. It's just aged pretty poorly. It could have looked really cool if it was a real life thing, you know, a real animatronic or whatever, but unfortunately it wasn't. And it's like the only bit of CGI that's in the episode. There's the when the machine's on and the things are spinning and there's all the energy, that's fine because that's just your bog standard CGI that gets used in pretty much every episode. But the only other bit CGI is the scorpion, and it looks shit. So
it also looks like shit.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else really I can say about it. Have you got any other thoughts?
Well, I talked about it briefly last week. I know CGI isn't the be all and end all of a story necessarily, and it shouldn't be like, oh, it's bad because the CGI is bad. But the second half of this episode, the story is the Lazarus monster. That is it. Because you think like Father's Day, some of the Reaper CGI, it didn't always hold up well, but the story was Rose and her dad, and that still really works. And you just add the Reapers on to like accentuate it. And this like the story is like running away from this big ass monster. So it's kind of a bit more crucial, and I think you can judge it a bit more for it. I think, the CGI just didn't age well. I think especially actually showing the face talk, probably a bad move. Especially, I think it would have worked if the monster didn't talk, because you do have the scene where Lazarus has a speech in the church later on anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think you needed him to talk. He can explain all his motives and shit later on. So I think it would have just been better as he was just like this force of nature, whatever. I do think the design is genuinely really good. And I'm mad they never made a toy of it when I was little. I always wanted one. They never did, sadly.
Maybe they knew it wouldn't be very good, so they're like not good about that.
they knew they couldn't create the face perfectly well. But the face is a bad idea. And some shots were fine, passable. I think when the Dr. Martha are in the thing and it's stalking around there, I was like, that doesn't look too bad.
No.
But when it's like actively talking, particularly the bit where the doctor's turning on the gas taps and he's like, ooh, I think that looks like Thomas the Tank Engine kind of levels of CG or whatever. It hasn't aged particularly well. It's a shame, because I think if they'd made that today, they could do a much better job of it. But unfortunately, it was made 14 years ago. So shame.
I mean, there's not much else I can really add. It just doesn't look good. And it's not normally, if the episode was better, you know, if the story was better, it wouldn't necessarily be the end of it. But unfortunately, when your main premise is look, big CGI monster, it's not great. But so sort of my next one also not great. Don't know if you've got this one, but I thought the set design was pretty poor as well. Which is very generic.
I can see that, yeah.
They put a little logo up there that looks scientific, but isn't it?
Oh, I thought that looked really bad. The Lazarus Laboratories logo thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but it looks like something at least. They put something originally.
Yeah, so I don't think that's actually. I thought they'd like make a sign, like just stick it on, but I think they've just added that on in post. I think so. That was a bit.
But so it's just not great set design. I think isn't it the same building where they filmed New Earth? Isn't it like the Cardiff?
It does look similar
or something.
Yeah.
Basically one of those same locations where they always film. But it's just so generic, and I get that it's like a dinner party type thing and it's going to have that kind of look, but then they just move to a cathedral where they don't, you know, you don't need that to be in a cathedral. They only need it to be there so it's in the top, and so it has something to fall from. But it doesn't, you know, he plays the organ, not the bell to knock it down. So it's like, well, what? Just go somewhere that's loud. You know, well, I guess there's no reason for it to be the cathedral, and they shoehorn it in slightly, I think, with its, I cowered there in the war. It's like, oh, okay, Sure you did.
That feels like a rewrite when they realized how short the episode was.
Yeah,
They need to add in the cathedral section.
Yeah, oh, I'll get there. But yeah, it's just obviously the cathedral is a cathedral, so they don't really change that. But it's just a generic dinner party with a big sciencey machine in the middle. And like I said, I do like the design of the sciencey machine. But other than that, it's just a bit. There's a science classroom where he goes and turns the gas taps on. That's literally in a school, I expect, because I had those same like taps and plugs in my school for our science classroom. So that's probably where that's filmed. They part of the chase sequence is filmed in like a boiler room, and that's just really
it didn't feel like one cohesive building, and it's supposed to be.
No, and then they were on the roof as well at one point. His office is just this big open room with a cathedral model and a desk in it, which that's not really an office. It's too big to be. I know he's like the head of the business or whatever, but still, nobody would have an office that's basically a whole floor. And especially when we like praised the set design for the past 2 episodes, with it being even longer than that, and Shakespeare Code, where it all looked really good. Even to some extent Gridlock with what they could do with the one cabin. This one just felt like it's part of what I mean. It was budget saving, is that they were like, oh, just it's just a dinner party. Just throw in some fancy people and some cocktail waiters and stuff. But never mind. It's next week, I think, at least is a little bit better with the set design. At least it's a more interesting location, to say the least. So what is your second negative?
Well, this is my third, but we already kind of talked about it anyway. I don't mind that Martha's family is in it. But I think they could have been used so much better. And I don't like Francine as a character. I think she's awful. I hate her. As in, she's not a terrible character. She's a terrible person. I don't like her. But at least she has a plot. So I'm like,
and she has a bit of an arc moving forwards as well. She does eventually.
This is like the start of the arc. So I'm like, fair enough. And again, Tish, for the most part, I mean, she's just there to get the plot started. It needs to get the Martha and the Doctor.
And show how shallow she is by being like, oh, he's old. Oh, he's young and rich.
Oh, he's young and rich. I'm going to snog him now.
Yeah, basically.
Oh dear, he's a scorpion.
Oh no, whoops.
Guess I'll still snog him. But,
why do you always ruin this, Martha? God.
Oh gosh, yeah. Every bloke I date, you say there's something wrong with them. Well, if that's your type, love, then I think
you like big scorpion then.
I mean, goodness me. So yeah, that's kind of a means to an end why she's in it anyway. But I do feel like she's very tacked on in the cathedral section. Why does she go along? Just not do anything anyway. All she does is like help Martha up at the end, but just don't have Martha fall and trying to hang. Just have him approach her, and she's get
her go up by herself.
Or just kill her in this episode, and then Francine has much more of a reason to hate the Doctor.
That would make more sense.
Or kill Leo because he's useless. So yeah, Leo does absolutely nothing. He's there to make one joke, then he gets knocked out and has to just hold an ice pack on his head. And then he goes on holiday with his family, so he's not in the finale at all, really. Anyway,
visiting a friend in the finale. He stay? Does he stay there throughout the whole of that year? Does he remember? He doesn't remember the year. Did they ever find him? Was he supposed to be on the Valiant? Who knows? We'll find out. I'm sure there's going to be a fun fact saying Reggie Yates was unavailable to film during this period, which is why he couldn't be on the Valiant.
I think he's unavailable for the entire year. To be honest.
Almost definitely, because it looks like this time he's just turned up after like the BAFTAs have been on and gone, yeah, all right, I'll film a scene of Doctor Who, and then left again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he definitely had one day of filming. I think he was just quite limited anyway. But yeah, I just feel like they could have just worked the family in a lot better. Because they've probably done it. They've worked, I think, Jackie and Mickey in Aliens of London and everything. I think they worked into the plot really well. And like Army of Ghost Doomsday and everything. But this, I'm just like, I don't care about you. Maybe if they had like a 2-parter back on Earth with the family, and we had like they did with Jackie and Mickey, maybe that would have helped. But it also doesn't help that the episode's just average. So there's that. And yeah, Francine just going off at Martha, like, oh, you've changed so much. And like, it's been 1 day since you've seen her. I was like, that's a bit strange, but planting some seeds, I guess. So it's fine, but I just think that the family could have been used better.
Yeah, and there's no need for them to do it like, oh, you've only been on 12 hours. Like, just make it a week or something. I don't know. Yeah,
it's nice to show that the Doctor finally got it right. That's some progress. But also, it would have been better if it had been at least a couple of days later.
Yeah. I get what you mean about the family. Obviously, I've laid my case for them.
You
But
have.
yeah, I do get where you come from in their negatives. My sort of next positive or no negative is the third act. From when Lazarus is killed and put in the ambulance. Ever since I've sort of first watched this episode, I've always been like, right, the episode should end there.
Yeah.
And I've always disliked the rest of the episode just because I'm like, oh, more. It doesn't need to happen. We know why Lazarus has done it. We know what's happened. There's nothing else we can gain from having that conversation with the doctor and Lazarus. There's, maybe Tish grows a little bit fonder of the doctor, so maybe that's something, but it's not like Tish didn't like him in the first place.
So I do really like the speech the doctor gives to Lazarus about, some people live more in 20 years than they do in 80, and all of that. He's like, oh, you're going to end up alone, blah, blah, blah. But we did that in school reunion, so we did that again.
Yeah, and even so, like have that in the science building maybe before the doctor tries to blow him up. Have it there. There's no need for it to go to the cathedral other than, oh, I came here when I almost died, so now I'm going to come here when I'm not going to, and that again, as you mentioned, feels very forced and very much like we need a reason for this to continue on. I know. We'll have him into an ambulance. We'll have him then very quickly kill and burst out of the two paramedics that have helped him. It just feels, because it feels when they come out of the science building like, oh, that's the end of the episode. It feels like everything's being wrapped up, and it just feels like it's just tacked on, forced is what I've used, and it's just unnecessary, especially because the way that he's defeated isn't exactly the most interesting either. No. If anything, it makes more sense that the machine that made him kills him.
That's what I've said, yeah.
But to be killed by loud noises, just doesn't really go with what we've had in the past in the rest of the episode. But yeah, that's my third. I said, as we mentioned at the start, I don't like it, but I'm not passionate enough to be like, oh, it's horrific. So what was your third? Well, your second, but your third.
Technically my second, but the third I'm talking about. Yeah. It was basically that. I agree with you. I put more endings than Return of the King. So we had the first time Lazarus dies and the second time Lazarus dies, and then the actual ending we did have.
And you could count the first when the doctor just pisses off and goes, bye, Martha, and then comes back. So, that's an ending.
Yeah.
That's where it should have ended.
God, that would have been such a good episode. But yeah, I think it was very well paced, I thought, up until Lazarus first dies. I did write the first death felt a lot more fitting in terms of the story. And then the whole thing with the cathedral and stuff, just it's like, we've done this before. This is just dragging out the runtime because the episode's a bit short. And it was like 41 minutes anyway. So you could tell they were kind of desperate to just get it to that bare minimum. So yeah, that's probably why they also put an extended coming up trailer at the end of it. So maybe a bit more. But there was another reason for it. But yeah, I just feel like it would have been a much more enjoyable watch if it was just like 35 minutes and it was just, they wrapped it all up with the first time Lazarus dies, but it has to be 41-ish minutes or whatever. So it just kind of dragged a bit there, and you didn't need that whole cathedral bit.
You didn't need Mark Gatiss and his very hairy chest. That was very unnecessary.
That's always put me off. Ever since I was like, that
doesn't look real. It doesn't look real. I'm like, oh no thank you.
Yeah, they showed off. They gave us a lot more Mark Gatiss and his body than I needed in this episode, I must say.
Yeah, definitely unnecessary. And if they cut off the cathedral bit, we wouldn't have had any of it. Yeah, that's fair enough. I just completely agree. My only other point is that I think the episode wants us to feel sorry for Lazarus at times, but he's shown to be such a creep and manipulative man that I just never feel like, oh, he died. Oh, he was just trying to live because he was scared. I never felt that I should feel bad for him. It's because even at the end when the doctor's like, oh, I'll cover him up, I'm like,
yeah. And Lady Thor's like, have you got even crueler? So he's obviously a horrible person anyway.
Yeah. And I felt that was, and again, maybe that's the third act just being tacked on, like we need something to happen, because it does try and make Lazarus seem like he's a he's a nice guy, or you should feel bad that he's having to deal with this. He was just trying to he was scared from when he was younger, and he was just trying to avoid that, and blah blah blah. But it doesn't fit with his character. If you want us to feel bad for a villain, at least make them have motives that you can somewhat agree with. Think of Killmonger in Black Panther, when you're like, hey, I can kind of get behind the ideas, not the method. Have something like that. Don't have I'm going to make myself young so I can make money.
Yeah. Me and all my rich friends forever.
And then but then
all you poor people suck.
Well, that's it. Like, up until the cathedral, it's the whole motive is, hey, I want some money to spend. Money. And then in the cathedral, it's like, oh, I don't want to die. I fear death. I'm like, which one is it, mate? Come on.
I will feed you.
Yeah.
he just becomes like a pantomime villain in that bit, really.
Yeah. And maybe it was reshoots, and they were like, look, we need you back for another day. Can you quickly come and do this? Because he doesn't need to be there for the CGI monster, does he? He's not on set for that. He's only really in this episode, 10 minutes as a human, if that.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, it's just, I don't feel bad for him. Sorry if you were trying to make me do that. Hey, you never know. Target novelization. Maybe they'll do better.
He'll be a serial killer. Obviously.
Yeah, that's a good point. Everyone is. That's what Francine is. That's what Leo is. That's why he's not in it a lot. He's a serial
he's
killer.
Killing people.
There you go. Look, all makes sense now.
I mean, it's something for him to do for the first time. So at
least he'll have something to do. So have you got any other negative points that you want to bring up, other than the fact that it's just pretty boring episode?
I think that's basically it. I just had those big problems with it, but again, it's just, it doesn't inspire even hatred in me. It's just so average. But I will talk about the coming up trailer, because I found that really funny. Obviously, you didn't see it, but if you watched it as it went out, I'm sure you can find it on YouTube and stuff. But I mean, it just shows like the entire rest of the series. It ends with the shot of the Master doing the tapping on the table when he's killed all the people and sound of drums. So I'm sure people gathered he was a Time Lord, because you can see the Gallifrey text on his ring very, very clearly. But luckily, I didn't pick on that. Well, I didn't know who the Master was in 2007, so I still remember my dad being like, "Oh, holy shit, it's the Master!" when Utopia read, and I was like, "Sorry," but
Pardon? Who?
Sorry, what? You? No. I was like, I remember being like, "Well, actually, it's going to be a two-parter starting next week, so this is not going to be a
not going to link. Thank you very much. Oh,
I was like, oh, three-parter, okay, for better or worse. But yeah, it just kind of showed lots of different things, but there was just a few, and again, it's just hindsight, I think, that makes it quite funny at times what they put in it. Just like the Next Time trailer for this, when there's just Tish. That's in the Next Time trailer. No, we didn't need that. But there was one, it was the speech in Blink. He was like, don't turn your back, don't look away, and don't. And then it cuts to Son of Mine going, run! And I just burst out laughing.
Yeah, I remember that.
Utterly hilarious.
Yeah.
And then there's also when Martha's being like shot away in 42 in the spaceship, and he's like, Martha. They've dubbed him going Martha with him when he's possessed going Martha. And it just looks so weird. I'm like, that does not. But again, that's because I've seen the episode, so I know they've kind of switched it out. It just seems very odd. But I wanted to note that because it was absolutely. It was the most entertaining part of the episode.
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
I thought I'd bring it up.
Understandable. Yeah, mine. I've watched my episodes most of the time on Series 3 Steelbooks that they released. So I've got annoyingly put in discs. And I'm sure you'll be pleased to know that the Dalek 2-part was split across 2 discs for some reason. Why they didn't just put them in the same one, I don't know, but it was in 2. So I just got a Next Time trailer for 42. It was 42. I was like, all right, okay then. So I don't know whether that was specifically made maybe for an American audience, maybe for Netflix when people know, I don't know, or maybe just for the DVDs, because that's very strange to make 2.
That is strange to make a brand new one.
Unless maybe maybe they had the Next Time one already going, but then they had
there is a reason why they wouldn't have reused the Coming Up, because we'll talk about that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at least they didn't spoil the Master's Return properly, like in Series 10.
What a dumb idea that
was.
We'll
come on to, because I hate it, and I still hate the BBC for ruining that moment for me.
So stupid.
That would have been the Captain Jack reaction, but like 10 times more for that one, especially.
Look away in 10 seconds if you don't want to be spoiled. Oh, this won't leak if we show
oh,
this
the
to the press.
spoilers. Let's have a look. Oh, fuck off.
Idiots.
Just get rid of it. Just don't put it in. You don't need to say anything. Unless maybe they were like, hey, we know. Who knows? Maybe when we get there, there'll be some trivia that we'll know that will say why they did it. But
it's because they're the BBC and they're dumb.
Yeah, I mean, at least they thought about that now. Moving forwards, they've at least toned it down a bit, maybe too.
Yeah, they've gone too far the other way now.
Yeah,
I hope the next showrunner has like a good balance of both, really.
Yeah, if it is the showrunner's decision,
it certainly wasn't. I know Moffat didn't want the Johnson to be in the trailer, so.
But I imagine Chibnall's more like a keep everything hidden kind of thing.
Yeah, he definitely is. I think. But
yeah,
what can you do?
Yes,
BBC.
So what else did I have?
At least there was no politics in this episode.
There wasn't, but I think that's just because this episode was pretty bland.
Until they link it back to the politician master.
Yeah, the politician. Yeah. I always wondered what the Saxon man whispers in Francine's ear.
I was thinking that as well.
He's like, because he can't be like, he's an alien.
A serial killer.
I mean, maybe that must be what, something like that. Because it's obviously not bad enough for him to be arrested. But I did like the fact that Harold Saxon, the master, has clearly gone, hey, go and fuck with the family for a day before we kidnap them in a week. All right, see you later. Although I don't know if I don't think at this point he's prime minister, is he?
I don't think so. I think the campaign is still probably going on.
Yeah, so this is why he's still the head of whatever he is at that point. But yeah, I mean, also that will have to be to give a shout out to the olive lady that's like, oh, the only thing that's going to kill us is choking on an olive, and then she dies. Absolutely very funny. Yeah, Lazarus is pretty arrogant. You'd think he would have had like a test or a medical of some description after he had his his thing. Like, surely if this is the first time it's ever
I look
used.
Fine, so
yeah. But it's fine. Maybe they had a faith in the CGI. They must have had a lot of faith in the CGI for them to base around the episode around it, but it didn't really work.
Oh, well.
I mean, I can't
gold star for trying.
I mean, it might have looked better when we were younger and CGI was worse in general, but it's not held up very well, which, to be fair, most things don't really. But again, if you think about Star Wars Revenge of the Sith 2005, the CGI in that looks pretty good. And this was 2007. Obviously different budgets, but still. So what, before we come on to the ratings, fun facts are there?
God, ratings. Oh God, think about that. Fun facts. Let's go. Right. So the working title, you'll be surprised to know, was The Madness of Professor Lazarus.
I don't know if that's any better, to be fair.
No, I mean, I quite like the Lazarus Experiment, but that's fine. I guess that gives away the badness very quickly.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe.
But that's fine. This is the second time in the revived series that the Doctor jumps away from an explosion. The first time being the Unquiet Dead.
Oh, yeah, all right, yeah. Sure.
I don't know why that was a fun fact, but it was, so I wrote it down. Mark Gatiss' appearance makes him one of 5 people to have both written and acted in Doctor Who. At the time, I think it was 4, because there's been Toby Whithouse since. But
who did he play, Toby?
He was in Twice Upon a Time. He's the German soldier that's pointing
right. Okay. Right. Okay. Fair enough.
So yes, there's that. Production didn't have time to make a wig for Old Man Lazarus, so Mark Gatiss brought one he previously wore in The Legal Gentleman, playing a character based on Peter Davison's character in All Creatures Great and Small.
Right.
Doctor Who references, yay.
Oh.
The BBC hired the wig off of him for £100. So there you go.
What? It's his own wig. All right, anything to get a little bit of money. That's clearly something tax related.
Yeah, so there you go. Lazarus as a name references the biblical man where he is resurrected from the dead. So
Jesus.
Really, yes, Lazarus is Jesus. Jesus' real name is Lazarus. So yeah, they weren't particularly subtle about that, obviously, calling him Lazarus, but what can you do? Lazarus's genetic manipulation device is redecorated from the descent capsule the Doctor and Ida use in the
I
Impossible Planet.
knew
in
it.
Yeah. So
I
was thinking like that's a
Yeah.
really good design, but I feel like I've
Yeah.
seen that before somewhere.
I was gonna
when I read that,
mention
I was
it
like,
when you said there was a fun fact about it. I was gonna mention there like, oh, it looks a bit like. But I was like, oh wait, no, I thought
yeah,
it was. That's probably why they never made a
that's
toy of
the
it
one.
because they already had a toy of it.
Yeah.
Just
So
paint it
that's
white.
it,
If you
yeah.
have the toy, just paint it white. It's the same thing.
I do have the toy,
Yeah.
and I will paint it white. But I want a Lazarus creature to go with it.
No.
Although they have since made the Doctor in his tuxedo, so but there you go. No Martha in the dress though, sadly.
Oh, that's a
So
shame.
what can you do?
With the nice
But
shoes.
I do have a fun fact about Martha's clothes also coming up.
Oh.
So there you go. So yeah, there was no next time trailer after the episode when this aired, but a coming up trailer due to the fact that there was a 2-week break after this episode because of Eurovision.
Yay, Eurovision.
So at the end of the trailer, it says Doctor Who will return in 2 weeks, which is why it's not on the DVDs and stuff, I would assume, because that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
This is my favorite fun fact for this week. Originally, Lazarus was going to work on developing invulnerable synthetic skin. This was dropped as Russell T Davies feared this would be part of the plot of Spider-Man 3, which was due for release around the same time as the episode. And I don't think that turned out to be the case, but good to be cautious.
All right.
I guess. I mean,
I'm sure the
it would have been
executive
cheaper to do, so I kind of wish you'd done it.
The executive at Sony were like, "Oh, I hope Doctor Who doesn't do this."
Yeah. Oh God, it's going to be embarrassing for us.
That's going to ruin our excellent film that we've made.
Yeah, our
Spider-Man 3.
And this excellent episode, it really turned out well for all.
Oh.
Stephen Greenhorn, who wrote this episode, was inspired by The Fly and Jekyll and Hyde in creating his mad scientist story, as well as the Spider-Man villains Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus, where those inspirations came out. I'm not quite sure.
I get the Green Goblin one. Maybe Dr. Octopus. Maybe not the Sam Raimi Dr. Octopus, but in general, I guess.
Yeah, just the mad scientist, this aesthetic, I guess, for sure. Lazarus was originally going to be called Professor Anger. I'm glad they changed it.
It's terrible.
Yeah. And then finally, this is the first episode since Smith and Jones that Martha is seen in clothes other than her leather jacket and jeans. So they must have stank after all that shit.
Yeah, I did notice when they were in the TARDIS.
No wonder the Doctor wanted to leave.
I was like, she's been wearing that this whole time. But I was like,
she has.
She has. That's been in sewers, covered in smog, Shakespearean London, and God.
It finally got too much for the Doctor, and he was like, you know what? Time to drop you back home.
You need to go home and get a change of clothes, please.
Please shower.
Oh, fair enough. Christ. I did think that when I saw it. I was like, she's been in that a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Excellent fun facts, as always. Now we come on to the even funner part of the episode, rating the episode. What are you giving it out of 10?
I don't know. I mean, again, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I feel like it's got to be around the 4.5 or 5 mark because it's just so in there. But it's not utterly contempt. It didn't offend me entirely. I mean, I think I gave Love and Monsters like a 4 and Fear Her 4.5. I'm going to be generous and give it a 5, I think. Just straight down the middle.
Yeah, I've done exactly the same. Because like I mentioned at the start, this was like the most middle of the road episode I think we've had, in the case of it was just meh. It wasn't the best and it wasn't the worst.
I'm not passionate about anything either way about it. So
no, like with Love and Monsters, I have like 3 pages of notes. So it says a lot, and I gave that a 4. So with this, I barely filled 2 pages of my little notebook. It was basically 1.5. Before I put at the bottom, Chibbers time, baby. Because that brings us on to next week, which is 42. Which is where the Doctor and Martha arrive on a spaceship that is crashing into the sun.
Yes.
Is it crashing?
Basically.
And they need to find out what's going on and fix it and try and steer the sun away. It's called 42 because they've got 42 minutes, and I believe it's an episode that runs in real time.
Yeah, basically.
Like the TV show 42. Or was it 24? It's 24.
24.
Oh, there you go. They just switched the numbers around. It runs in real time. They have 42 minutes to fix everything. We'll have to check that to see if there's any time jumps or anything, because I'm sure they they skip it at some point and they work
Yeah.
their way around it. But yeah, it is Chris Chibnall, the current showrunner, that wrote this episode. I haven't seen it in a while. I remember it sort of being like this one where I was a little bit bored by it. But I think you quite enjoy it.
From what I remember of it, I very much enjoy it. I know it has the actress who plays Rosa Parks in Rosa in it.
Yes.
She gets fried.
And
so that's fun.
And one of the teachers from Watley Road.
Yeah. Who I really like his character in this, actually.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Him and Martha are my OTP to this day.
Interesting.
Screw Mickey Smith. Should have got back with this guy.
And Lucifer. Oh.
And Lucifer, God rest in peace, Lucifer. But yeah, I remember really liking it. I mean, it's not like my favorite of the series or anything, but I had fun with it. I remember. I think it's a more unique kind of villain. I like, I think it's a much more successful base under siege than this kind of was.
Yeah.
I like, from what I remember, I like a lot of the side characters. Francine is in it, great. Yeah, I think it should be quite fun to see how it goes. And I really like the Dr. Martin, I think. Maybe not always characters, but I'll try and see. But I think David Tennant and Freeman are really, really good in this one.
Yeah. I think I have concerns about some of the side characters. I don't remember liking many of the crew much. I think I just thought they were quite annoying.
Yeah.
And thinking about it, this is quite a Chibnall thing to do, to have an ensemble episode with a load of different characters. He's done that quite a lot in his turn as showrunner.
Yeah.
Where the Doctor and the companion have arrived at a location and there's 4 or 5 people already there and they're stuck in one place. So you could say it's bread and butter. And does this have any similarities to Cyberwoman? We'll find out. Because it could do. It's an invading force, a base under siege.
Never know.
I don't think it will though. Yeah, I think it should be fine. I'm interested. Hopefully, I like it more than I remember liking it.
Yeah.
Again, the fact that I've not seen it for a while might help its favor.
Yeah. Hopefully, it's this season's Impossible Planet for you.
Yes, yeah, but I know I'll be waiting for the week after, which is obviously
that is the trouble with it. So I'm just like, I just want to get into the second half where things are actually good.
Yeah, because as soon as 42 passes, we've got the next 2 part, we've got Blink, and then we've got the 3-part finale, all of which, in my memory, at the minute, I rank quite highly in terms of Doctor Who episodes. Obviously, that can all change, as it could next week. But I don't think this week changed much for us, unfortunately.
No. Although this is the first time we've probably agreed on a rating in ages, I feel.
Yeah, it is. At least sort of dead on.
Once in a blue moon when we get exactly the same score.
Pretty much we're always 0.5 out, and that's why I was like, oh, if you give 4.5.
Yeah.
But no. Yeah, Lazarus gets a 5 from us both. Next week we'll be back with 42 and some sunny space boys.
Yeah.
But until then, and I should also mention, in case there's a Doctor Who trailer that comes out before then, we might cover that instead. Again, unlikely, but I'm kind of
BBC, please promote your show.
I think something will happen
yesterday.
Soon.
Yesterday, their YouTube channel posted a best of series.
I saw that.
Don't focus on that. That was over a year ago. Promote the next series. I thought the hearing next month.
I thought that maybe they've put that up to sort of remind people that, hey, this is what happened last series.
Hey, remember the Timeless Children that everyone loved?
Yeah, this is what happened last series. So when you see the full trailer for this series, you're caught up. I'm thinking that's what I think they're doing, but I might be completely wrong, and they might have just had this always in the calendar since last year. But yeah, I mean, there could be. It's unlikely. I've not heard any rumblings that we're going to get anything within the next week. No. But if we do, we'll be back to talk about it then, obviously. But yeah, if not, we will see you next week for 42. Bye.
Bye.